Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a good show for you. We're back finally on Newsflash, trying to get those consistent episodes out to you, ladies and gentlemen. But we have a very, very important story to start things off for today, and it is in Ukraine. We are still watching this, kind of almost Schrodinger's invasion here. Depending on what side of the wall you're on, you're saying, "Oh, invasion's imminent. Obviously it's not the wall, but the Ukrainian border here. But if you're Ukraine, if you're a lot of people in Europe, and especially if you're Russia, you are trying to draw things down. But not Joe Biden and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. Western officials, apparently according to the New York Times, though, are still cautiously optimistic and hopeful for a democratic solution to the crisis. Also, Henry Cuellar, the right-wing Democrat under FBI investigation, has decided the best thing for him to do is get going a bot army of Twitter supporters to support the South Texas representative. Also, you may have seen a little bit of coverage if you're an MSNBC viewer or New York Post reader about some guy stealing hamburgers. We'll tell you a little bit more about that for the last story on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Newsflash. Let's get started. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the show today. We're talking a little bit about the United States and NATO. They say they have seen no sign of Russian pullback from Ukraine at the moment. Let's get into this here from the New York Times. U.S. and NATO say on Wednesday they have seen no sign of pullback from Russian troops near Ukraine, even as Moscow is continuing a partial military withdrawal and Ukraine sought to project national unity in the face of the threat. So, here comes NATO. We're not doing any withdrawal. Unfortunately, there's a difference between what Russia says and what it does, Blinken says in an interview, and we're seeing no meaningful pullback. On the contrary, we continue to see forces, especially forces that would be in vanguard of any renewed aggression against Ukraine, continuing to be at the border, to mass at the border. So it really is a very interesting situation here because there's obviously no way, the United States now literally not letting journalists come in for, for example, the new troop deployment in Ukraine, and they are now, there is literally no journalists there, so it's very, very hard to get a kind of an accurate, or at least somewhat trustworthy, report on any of this stuff in terms of, are there more troops at the border, or is it going to be a real problem here, or it's the same government that told us when they blew up a family of 10 that it was an ISIS-K fighter, or supposed to take their word, that, Russia's not pulling back, invasion imminent, it's going to happen this weekend, doesn't happen the weekend, it's going to happen at 3 a.m. tomorrow, doesn't happen at 3 a.m. tomorrow. We've seen all these promises that just are not realistic whatsoever, and just we know aren't going to come true. We see them kind of not coming true ahead of time, they're making another one. It's just very, very hard to wrap your head around to a certain extent here. So unfortunately, there's a difference between what Russia says and what it does. So here is the man himself, the man of the hour. This is Jens Stoltenberg, the big man on top at NATO.
We have heard the signs from Moscow about readiness to continue diplomatic efforts. But so far, we have not seen any de-escalation on the ground. On the contrary, it appears that Russia continues the military build-up. We will continue to convey a very clear message to Russia that we are ready to sit down and discuss with them, but at the same time, we are prepared for the worst. And
I think the demands Russia has made here in this situation have been kind of pretty even I kind of understand what United States what Russia wants here. Someone just kind of not an IR expert here. It seems pretty clear they don't want United States trying to bring NATO under the security umbrella, trying to include it into NATO, trying to, do all those things. And that's why they're saying, okay, hands off, and, we're going to do that with military troops at a time when, the United States is kind of weak militarily coming off of Afghanistan. They've just kind of been humiliated. They're distracted with a bunch of other things. And then, here comes Russia on the border, all of a sudden in Ukraine to take back some of these places they maybe were not strong enough to take, and they think they are strong enough to take back this time. So Stoltenberg said that in the past, Russia has moved troops while leaving weaponry in place. So what we need to see is a real withdrawal of forces, which is lasting in real. Not that they're moving troops around, but again, we are monitoring. We really hope they will withdraw forces, but that will be the best contribution to political solution. And there's some reason for cautious optimism because they have so clearly at least stated that they're ready for a diplomatic solution. And again, this commitment to pull back troops it'll be interesting to see what comes from that on the United States side. So far, what we've seen is just no belief. It can't. It's still happening, guys. Come on. At a certain point, if they keep saying invasion's happening, Russia's okay, we're pulling back troops. No, you're not. You're not pulling back troops. Invasion's happening tomorrow, and it doesn't happen. There's a point where you start to look a little bit weird, just to say the least. The Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov dismissed NATO's assessment on troop levels, saying the alliance has not made a sober evaluation of the situation. Sober analysis here. When you're predicting invasions and they're not even happening, does not seem to be NATO's strong suit at the moment. Russia's defense ministry announced more troop withdrawals, saying that they, a train loaded with Russian tanks, armored vehicles, and howitzers left Crimea and would return to their bases after concluding military exercises. And that's the other thing. Apparently, there's been military exercises happening around this time at this place in past years, but it's just been a little bit bigger this year. And then, of course, what do we get? This full 5-alarm fire here that is evident that we are living through right now. But the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov dismissed the assessment and Russia saying that they're getting troops out of here. Ruslan Leviev, a researcher that follows Russian troop movements, said the military equipment that left Crimea would be redeployed at bases near Ukraine's east. So it'll be interesting to see if they actually go do that. So, as President Biden and Putin continue to engage in a perilous pas de deux over the fate of Ukraine, the nation at the heart of the crisis announced a new national holiday on Wednesday, Unity Day. President Volodymyr Zelensky, in an effort to bolster public resolve in the face of growing hybrid threats, information, propaganda, moral and psychological pressure, in response to U.S. intelligence assessments over the weekend, the Russian invasion could begin on Wednesday. I thought it was over the weekend. I thought there was going to be, there'll be, invasion over the weekend. Oh, invasion coming Wednesday. Oh, we will see. What happens here. On Tuesday, President Biden said U.S. analysts say that more than 150,000 Russian troops near the Ukrainian border remain in very much a threatening position, according to, their satellite images and stuff. So it's going to be interesting. Will this tough talk here play out? I may be a fool here standing and, just talking in the United States, and, as troops are coming in and massacring, that poor Ukrainian grandmother who, we saw on Twitter as, a brave hero of the resistance, but was actually being trained by neo-Nazis. That could be happening right now. It's very, very scary. So, but anyway, at the center of these discussions here is, the suggestion that Ukraine might drop its ambition to join NATO, a move that would fill one of Putin's key demands. Again, is it really worth protecting this alliance, protecting NATO, or at least not keeping NATO as it is and not expanding in Ukraine? Is that really worth doing that or not doing that? Is that really worth fighting an entire war over? I really don't think that, even if some people in the government really want to make that political calculus or feel like they need to make that political calculus, I don't think they can at this point, given where they currently are. So, yeah. I mean, it's a move that, it would fill Putin's key demands. It's a politically charged topic in Ukraine, and Zelensky has acknowledged it is being discussed. And yeah, so we see all these people, what is the purpose that NATO has to live for? Oh, okay, Russia gives us the purpose NATO has to live. This whole issue was about NATO in the first place. It was about expanding or not expanding NATO. And okay, if you're going to use NATO to threaten Russia again to revive all, old Cold War tensions and flames, and then they get pissed off, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, now we need NATO. Like, do you, the listener, see where that's not a little bit ridiculous? Like, I mean, I'm sorry. So in a speech to the European Parliament, Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, said that because of the Russian policies of citizens of Ukraine were keeping emergency bags by the front doors with basic clothes and important documents. These are not stories from the 1940s. This is Europe in 2022. Again, European Union not very happy about that there. So, and we've seen some kind of conflicting signals from Europe. Macron, obviously Germany been very docile on this situation, but it is very interesting to see, the reaction. Who is pushing this the most aggressively? It's not Ukraine, it's kind of Europe, but by far the person pushing the force on the international system pushing this aggression most aggressively here has got to be the United States. It's just that simple. All right, let's go to our next story, and we are talking today about Henry Cuellar. So this is the the guy in Texas. He is a very, very right-wing House Democrat. He's in kind of South Texas, under threat for the next election. Not only because his seat, was very strong, heavily red at the last election, but he also is having a left-wing challenger in the primary, and also is under threat from a little organization called the FBI for pretty much, from the best I can tell, not registering as a paid lobbyist for the nation of Azerbaijan. So this is a little bit of a report in The Intercept today about what this dude is up to now. So in Battle, Texas, Democratic Representative Henry Cuellar has seen a surge in wildly enthusiastic online support in the weeks leading up to his March 1st primary against insurgent Jessica Cisneros. The backing comes at a critical time and from a coveted set of voters, those who appear entirely new to politics and, it seems, new to even planet Earth. This is interesting. Inspiring the disaffected to engage in the political process has long been the holy grail of American politics, and it appears that Cuellar's brand of cautious conservatism is just the thing to have activated countless online accounts in the final days of the race. So it really seems like so many of these people are just, in the South Texas district, up and down the district, are joining Twitter now to say, I want Henry Cuellar's cautious conservatism. Let's go. So just this month, for instance, a young woman named Elia Isabella opened a Twitter account and began sharing her support for Cuellar. A pride, all my support, and I hope he stays in Congress, she said Monday. Apparently so eager to post, she did not have time to consider her unusual grammar. Her dedication to Cuellar is so complete that her entire online activity consists of retweeting Cuellar and replying positively to his posts. Very, very cool stuff there. Isabella, who quickly found a community of Cuellar supporters. She follows 64 people and has 6 followers, and nearly all of them share her breathless enthusiasm. Take Selena Stefaani, who has posted messages always praising the representative, specifically since opening an account in January. Thanks for always caring, reads one. Hopefully achieve great things for Texas. And like the bulk of Cuellar's newfound supporters, Stefani's first name is capitalized, but last is lowercase. A number of Cuellar's groupies inundated a tweet from Webb County Democratic Party announcing the early primary voting had begun. El futuro de Texas está en manos de Henry, replied Gabriella with 2 clapping emojis. With Henry until the end, wrote Jackie Murphy with a strong arm, and Murphy there being lowercase. The support with Henry is honest. He's a hardworking and prepared man, said Lulu Carey. Henry is a great example. My vote is for he, added John McLeod. That's a very interesting two-name combination there. All happened to join Twitter last month and exclusively exchange with content about Cuellar or Cisneros. So You have to guess here. If anything, like, who are these bots, like, even funded by? Like, 'cause, they're bots, obviously. But, like, who are they funded? Are they funded by, like, the people he's lobbying for? Are they just kind of funded out of the own, like, campaign coffers here? We got to get those Twitter accounts going. Like, it's our essential strategy to win. Is that what Henry Cuellar is on at the moment? Going to be very interesting. We will investigate here. But anyway, let's go through. So Cuellar hasn't always been a phenom on Twitter. Takes a November 5th tweet announcing passage of the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which he worked to break away from the Build Back Better Act and pass and then kill the Build Back Better Act. Absent was his swarm of supporters. Instead, his followers took the opportunity to blast him for undermining the broader package, to call him a sellout, and otherwise denigrate his legislative activity. So not quite the same. In his recent weeks, some Cuellar supporters have taken an interest to replying to tweets from or about Cisneros. We Texans no longer believe we are proposal on the air. You have no experience, wrote Angel Barra on Monday. I'm not convinced by Jessica. She doesn't have what it takes. She replied to CNN the same day when the outlet reported that Senator Jackie Murphy, back again, replying to CNN the same day when the outlet reported that Bernie Sanders endorsed Cisneros. Everyone, drop Jackie Murphy a follow, guys. Let's get it going. And Sasha Hill, too. At Sasha Hill, uppercase S, lowercase h, _85. Yeah, so again, lest these replies be too general to be substantive, some of Cuellar's vocal supporters are focused on the congressman's key issues in response to Cuellar's tweet for a safer internet day. He joined Rep. Susan Wild in Democratic Pennsylvania, calling YouTube to remove the, quote, how to tie a noose videos. Supporter Sasha Hill wrote, these are important issues that we must prevent. Excellent, Henry. Great job. Regarding Cuellar's support for an electric vehicle grid, fan Kelsey Gray wrote, everything is to benefit our economy. Excellent, Henry. You have our support. Yeah, it's again fortunate for Cuellar to have won over such committed backers so late in the game, especially after an FBI raid of his home and campaign office in January tied to an ongoing investigation in Azerbaijani influence peddling led to a drop in the polls. Many of his replies to his posts coming from accounts that have been active much longer and have much more kind of diverse interests than just Cuellar, are criticisms of his anti-abortion stance, references to federal investigation, or calls of support for Cisneros. But oddly, though, none of these new accounts seem to follow their new hero. As with any social media movement, spoil sports and detractors have arisen. Twitter user David Morrison, in response to one of the Isabella's praise to a post, had the audacity to question its authenticity. Oh my goodness. Could you imagine that? Another paid Cuellar bot, same exact Cuellar tweets as the others. Is the FBI following the money, he wondered? Cuellar's press secretary didn't respond for requests for comment. For the hopeful new clan of Cuellar backers, the March 1st primary looms large. The best is yet to come, promised Cuellar acolyte Maggie Evans. Yeah, so Henry, that primary is coming up, I believe, March 1st. Big deal, for the left wing to kind of get its swagger back. And again, really, I don't think it matters to a certain point if we have all these left wing people in there, if they're just going to kind of act like the way, for example, AOC is acting right now in Congress. But I think when it comes down to it, there is benefit to continuing to try and create more and more and more of these people in Congress, because what else are we going to do? First of all, what other kind of progress making movement is there on the left wing right now of the Democratic Party, or just anywhere that's making progress at a broad scale? But still, it's very good to see. Hopefully Cisneros is able to succeed there.
Buckingham Palace has announced the death of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh.
It's news flash.
you so much for listening to today's episode of Newsflash. We're getting into a little bit of an interesting discussion here today for our last story about crime and punishment, those two old classic topics there. And this is a piece by Andrew Perez talking about this interesting situation going on in our media coverage about crime. So last week, a corporate media journalist melted down over a video of a man allegedly stealing 10 packages of meat from a Trader Joe's grocery store in New York. It was no surprise that Fox News sought to exploit the video from the New York Post, but the millionaires on MSNBC's Morning Joe panel show did too. Meanwhile, Inside the Edition, a CBS show syndicated by local networks, blasted the video out all over the country. Let's frame the incident as further evidence of a surge in lawlessness in big cities involving petty thefts, retailers, chain pharmacies, and grocery stores. Again, I am not living in a big city at the moment, but, personally, I live pretty close to one at the moment. It seems to be fine. Like, there's no flames. There's no, I go there sometimes. It's, it's not that crazy. But, crime, it's definitely, hashtag on the rise. Whether you like it or not. Crime's on the rise. But while there's not much evidence to justify the crime spree narrative, even if it were true, portraying it as a Law and Order parable reflects a deep class bias excluding other parts of the story. A sharp increase in the number of people in New York City facing food insecurity and starvation. Because I really think it is very, very foolish to look at one here without the other. Indeed, while the Post callously named the alleged thief the Hamburglar, he told the paper he took the meat because he's homeless and, quote, fucking hungry, like hundreds of others in America's wealthiest metropolis. So, yeah, apparently the Post was there standing by at all these robberies, but that are, happening all over the place. But apparently somehow they tracked this guy down. I don't even know. According to recent government data that these same media outlets refused to even mention, again, food security, insecurity, really on the rise. And again, are you really expecting me, again, to be, again, think about where you're seeing someone, walk out with, 10, a guy who looks homeless and walks out with, 10 cartons of, or boxes of meat, or packages of meat from, the local Stop and Shop or something like that. Am I supposed to feel really bad for Stop and Shop? No, I have the means to pay for it, and I will. But again, isn't gonna ruin my day and make me fear for my life if I see someone. I'm just not. I'm sorry. But again, what really, this is definitely not something that should be happening in a normal world. People should be paying for things, and people should be able to pay for things. But the world we live in now is we have a fundamentally dysfunctional state that literally cannot look after so many of some people, especially in the way of the pandemic conditions, frankly, literally unable to do anything in terms of just actually getting aid to people, responding to all these problems on the ground here, homelessness, food insecurity, all that kind of stuff, and these problems will definitely continue to persist. So the story of mass immiseration at the heart of these viral videos and reports about people stealing meat and sodas. If folks are resorting in desperate measures, it's not because of lax law enforcement or political considerations. It's because the gap between the haves and the have-nots grows even wider, and significantly more people are struggling to survive. Again, we saw the social contract change a little bit after the 2008, crisis, where more and more people would kind of get kicked out of that homeowner class. And now we're seeing it again, people being further pushed down into a higher level of economic precarity. And, there is going to be some societal cost out. This is not a healthy thing that should be happening in society, but our state is just completely dysfunctional when it comes to caring for and making sure that the, vast majority of their citizens are, whether it be off the streets, healthy, taken care of, able to, pay for their food and whatnot, homelessness, food insecurity, all that kind of stuff. So on the rise. These people would argue Les Miserables is a cautionary tale about the dangers of giving Jean Valjean a 19-year prison sentence for stealing a loaf of bread for his starving family. When it comes to the poor, their attitude is let them eat cable TV punditry. You know, turn on MSNBC in jail. It'll be some restorative justice there. How about that? If you've watched or read the news these days, you know that the media is very worried about theft. Items being stolen from grocery stores and pharmacies, and supposed organized thefts from luxury retailers. Data shows that these crimes are in fact on the rise, but according to The Atlantic, they started taking place at lower levels. They're still taking place at lower levels than before the start of the COVID pandemic. In reality, we are seeing a surge of thefts over 2020 numbers because more stores are open and fewer people are shut in at home. But that doesn't mean an unusually high number of thefts are taking place. So it's not like, everything going crazy after the pandemic. It's not even that. It's simply just the fact that, more stores are open, so robbing in the country is going back up to normal. And it's just being covered as a massive, massive spike. But some journalists would rather go with their gut and rely on cold, hard facts, and that these people can just tell that something is very wrong. So Jonathan Lemire, a political White House bureau chief, said, "I think this points to a larger issue. There's a sense of things quite right. The city, there's a sense of things that there is a sense of things that are not quite right. Things are out of control." Lemire is saying, things are out of control. Like, we are getting to a point where people are just stealing to feed their families in this situation. Again, obviously, people are going to be, oh, you really think all crimes are to feed their family? No, people just want, sometimes people just want to steal, yes, but when the guy literally says, I did it because I'm homeless, and there is a massive spike in food insecurity in the city, I think it's a situation very, very much worth looking into and considering here, because it is a clear problem, and there's absolutely no denying that. So, yeah, again, the city, it's not just the city, it's just like the general kind of nation here. Again, recent U.S. Census surveys show the food scarcity has increased 73% in the New York metro area since last spring, with more than 15% of people in the region saying that they sometimes or often do not have enough food to eat. The number is up 65% from the start of the pandemic. So that could be another factor. And it's stores are getting open again. The fact is that people are experiencing way more lack of access to food from the pandemic time. So that is, again, a very, very kind of interesting situation here. Corporate media just uninterested in any of actually discussing these problems here. Morning Joe host Joe Scarborough on the network that reportedly pays the host up to $8 million a year instead of an opportunity to argue that instead use the opportunity to argue that Democrats should crack down on petty thefts in the name of protecting the disadvantaged. Because that's who you're protecting. Just criminalizing everything, just like how New York was under the stop and frisk era. That definitely we've seen protects the disadvantaged really, really well. If we don't protect our streets, if we don't make sure that people can go into our stores without having crimes rolling all around them, let's face it, it's not going to be people like you and me that bear the brunt of the crime wave. But it kind of is, because, the conditions are already bad enough for working class people. If they see somebody, taking food from the store, that's not really going to ruin their day, as opposed to, the bills on the table getting higher and higher. You know what I'm trying to say. It is that kind of, it's that kind of cost. But for someone like Joe, who's a very rich guy, going to the CVS, and they have to lock up the toothpaste, that is really super psychologically damaging to somebody like Joe Scarborough. So who exactly does Scarborough think is stealing food from grocery stores in broad daylight? Again, the man said in the video he's homeless, a detail the Morning Joe segment did not even bother to mention. Scarborough blamed the thefts on Democratic politicians caving to criminal justice reform advocates and wokeness. But, I thought we had a mayor with swag, like Eric Adams, who's going to solve all this crime. We got what we wanted here, right? Guys, let's see how it works. It's going to be very interesting. So we have a tough on crime mayor again in New York City. We'll see what happens when there's no effort from the top to change the material conditions. We'll see what happens to crime. It'll be very, very interesting. Again, here's the part about the toothpaste. This is Willie Geist. I go into my drugstore, Dwayne Reed, CVS, or whatever, and almost everything is locked down. It used to be some high value items were locked, but the toothpaste is locked. Everything was locked. Then panelist Al Sharpton agreed. There's no doubt about it. You go into the local pharmacy, Dwayne Wee, Red Aid, and you have to get someone to assist you. What did I miss that we now have to lock up toothpaste? So Sharpton, though, he noted that that there are those that are concerned, including me, about the overloading of the system and the jails with petty crime, but he ultimately pleaded with the with the city's new mayor, Democratic Mayor Eric Adams, to do something with, they're locking up my toothpaste. That's the civil rights cry of the new era. They're locking up my toothpaste, folks. That seems like a great place to end it on as we cross the 30-minute mark. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We'll be back on Friday.